Dealing with Glenn, who doesn't know about basketball.
But I never really liked Minnesota Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor.
If I were a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I would have a cold right now. Achoo, achoo.
The Minnesota Timberwolves are letting down yet another superstar. But this is a common trend. In over 36 years of existence, Minnesota arguably has had only 2 strong NBA playoff eras in their entire team history, with just 8 total All-Stars in franchise history. From Hall of Famers to #1 picks, the Wolves keep showing problems in supporting their stars. Why does this keep happening? I'm Jerry, and this is a Clutch original on how the Minnesota Timberwolves keep failing their best players. The Wolves became an NBA team in 1989-90 and made their first playoff appearance in 1997. But it has not been a smooth road. Let's take you to their first true superstar to give you the full perspective. It started with Kevin Garnett being taken 5th overall in the 1995 NBA draft. While making the all-rookie second team, Garnett started slow, but soon became the franchise player. And it was the addition of Stephon Marbury from the 1996 NBA draft that turned the Wolves into a contender. Because after adding Marbury, the Wolves made the playoffs for the first time ever. However, this was when the problem started. Despite growing up together, knowing each other even in high school, it was money that caused a rift. Because in 1997, the Wolves signed Garnett to a huge 6-year, $126 million deal, which led to a huge ego hit for Marbury. While Garnett wanted Stephon to stay, Marbury took his talents to New Jersey in '99. Was this the fault of the organization? Well, you could argue that the huge deal caused major strife in the locker room. Even still, Garnett was able to carry Minnesota to the Western Conference Finals in 2004, behind his one MVP season. But after this season, it all fell apart. Key pieces like Latrell Sprewell and Sam Cassell either turned down extensions or were traded, unable to build a contender around Garnett. So he would move on and get traded to Boston in 2007. This was the first incident of Minnesota not being able to build around a surefire Hall of Famer. And it didn't stop there. Minnesota's next star was Kevin Love. And despite his strong 6 seasons with 3 All-Star appearances, they were never able to make the playoffs before moving on from him in 2014. This even after he became the first player ever to put up 2,000 points, 900 rebounds, and 100 threes in one season in 2014. But again, Minnesota was unable to build around their one star, pairing Kevin Love with 0 All-Star caliber teammates in his tenure. This led to the Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns era, 2 #1 overall picks. Wiggins was drafted in 2014, Cat in 2015, and both were Rookies of the Year in their first seasons. This was also at a time they had a lottery pick 5 years in a row. But in this time with these 2 young stars, Minnesota only made the playoffs once. In 2017-18, losing 1-4 to Houston in the 2018 first round. And it brings up the question, what was the plan with this team? With so much young talent consistently getting added to the roster, it seemed impossible to have NBA Finals aspirations. Also, Wiggins averaged over 20 points per game in 3 out of his 6 seasons in Minnesota, but was never an All-Star with them. So the Minnesota trend continued with that one playoff appearance with the Wiggins and Cat era, moving on from Wiggins in 2020, trading him to Golden State. And it was also during this time that another superstar landed in Minnesota. But you can probably guess how that went. Jimmy Butler was traded to the Wolves in 2017 and had constant issues with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. But at this time, Minnesota was still young, and Butler did help lift them to the postseason for the first time since '04. However, issues to coaching, team execs, and teammates led to an extreme short tenure for Butler in Minnesota. And in November 2018, he was traded to Philadelphia with Justin Patton for Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Jared Bayless, and a second-round pick. But even after the 2018 Butler and the 2020 Wiggins departures, hope arrived in the form of another #1 pick. The introduction of Anthony Edwards in 2020 appeared to be a more significant shift in team culture, making the playoffs in 3 out of the first 4 seasons since Edwards was drafted. Ant made his first All-Star game in 2023, and the team was starting to gel. One of the biggest reasons, keeping Karl Anthony Towns and helping him develop into a franchise cornerstone. And 2024 looked like a huge shift in Timberwolves culture. Was the franchise turning it around? Minnesota reached their first Western Conference Finals in 20 years since the Garnett days, but contracts and salary space led to Cat getting traded to New York. Seemingly the one time Minnesota was getting it all together, but this money issue almost replicated the Garnett-Marbury problem from 20 plus years prior. Coming off their first conference finals appearance in 2 decades, and having iconic moments along the way, it looked like Minnesota was well on their way to being a perennial contender. But the Cat trade not only destroyed the chemistry on the court, it showed in final results. As of January 10th, 2025, the Wolves sit at the middle of the pack in the Western Conference, just 1 season removed from being the 3rd seed out west. Julius Randle, to this point, has not filled the shoes of Karl Anthony Towns. And Cat is arguably having the best season of his career in New York, while Minnesota has had to lean on Ant significantly more, while he continues to be doubled. With the lack of Towns on his side, the Wolves are just a shell of their conference finals team, which eerily enough is extremely similar to what happened to this very same team after they made the conference finals in 2004. Based on history, Minnesota won't be able to rebuild around Edwards, and ultimately, he'll be gone from Minnesota in the next few years. Minnesota has never been good about keeping their stars together when they're finally about to build a contender. Can they change the course of history?